Hello, today I want to talk about some products that I've been using throughout the month of March and kind of give you some mini reviews for them. And I do have several of them on my face today. I did this look with a bunch of them and I did film the look, so I'll be inserting clips for the products that I did use while I'm talking about them. Also, in case you're new here, my name is Nupur and I love indie makeup and all things color and sparkle, and welcome to my channel. And a quick note, because I don't think I've talked about this on YouTube before, but I've been making an effort to introduce myself and say my name at the beginning of every video, because even though my name is in my username, my name is frequently mispronounced if you've never heard it out loud or if you're not Indian, because my name is Indian. And so I'm just hoping that through repetition, it'll really drive home the correct pronunciation of my name. I would love it if you could give this video a like, especially if you find my content helpful, and also comment down below with what your hero products were for the month of March. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started, I did receive some of these products in PR, so I'll make sure to disclose that both verbally as well as down in the description box. And I think that's the only disclaimer I have this time, so let's get into the products. Hello, it's editing Nupur here, and Peggy, I guess. Here to say that I feel like I'm a little all over the place in this video, and I apologize. I'm still new to filming this type of video, and I feel like I forgot to state shade names or shade descriptions at some point throughout the video, but wherever I forget, I will be sure to put some text on the screen. Peggy. I'm kind of going in the order of how I apply makeup to my face. So the first product I want to talk about is this, which I feel like everybody and their mother was using in March, and this is the Milk Hydro Grip Gel Tint. So I'm trying to stick to a low buy, and obviously I have the privilege of receiving a lot of products in PR, but I don't get a lot of complexion products in PR, and I was getting into foundation a lot the last several months, but on a day-to-day basis, I much prefer to go foundation free. And I have one like tinted type of product that I've been using for over a year now, and I have a feeling that it's getting close to expiry. So I did want to find something to replace that once it runs out, which is why I picked up this. And I picked it up after I saw a few reviews or, first impressions from people that I do trust. And I have a dry skin type. Well, it's starting to lean a bit combo as I get older. I'm noticing that I'm getting more oil in like this area in my T-zone, mostly here and a little bit on my forehead. And so I'd heard good things about this from people with pretty much both oily and dry skin type, so I had high hopes for it. And formula-wise, I am pretty happy with it. It is a very dewy skin tint, as I'm sure you've heard. Like, if you don't like a dewy finish, you probably won't enjoy this. But it's also got a very sheer but buildable coverage. I feel like a lot of skin tints are just like low coverage foundation, which is why I just haven't tried a bunch, but I do feel like this has a very sheared tint when you apply it in a light layer. I also find that it can be applied with both your fingers, which is what I did today, as well as with a brush. And quite honestly, when it comes to skin tints, I'm usually using them when I want to do my makeup a bit faster. I don't want to fuss with it, and so I do appreciate when a skin tint can be applied with fingers. That being said, I feel like when I layer this up, which I did not do today. Today I only did one tiny layer, but when I layer it up, I do find that a brush helps to really like get it into your skin, into your pores, and just make sure that it's like one with your skin. So I picked up shade 8, which is an okay match for me. Depth-wise, it's fine for me now because I am at my palest since we're coming out of winter. I do think this is going to be a little too light for me in the summertime, but in the next shade up, shade 9, I feel like that's going to be too deep for me because I've seen the people who use shade 9. For example, Smitha, my friend, she uses shade 9 and she's quite a few shades deeper than me, and even though I tan quite a bit in summer, I'm not going to get that dark. So I don't know if I'll be able to use this as I tan, but since it is a pretty sheer coverage, I'm hoping that I can use it for as long as possible into summer. The other thing is that this shade, shade 8, the undertone is not quite perfect for me. I have a very olive undertone, slightly warm, and I just feel like this shade, I don't know if I would call it peachy, but it's just not the right fit for me. That being said, since it is a skin tint and it's so sheer, I can make it work. And to make it work, and what I did today is I've been setting it with my beloved Holy Grail Sephora powder. And what I've been doing to make it work is adding on my beloved, my Holy Grail, this Sephora collection powder. So this powder is technically tagged as a foundation powder, but it's baked, and when you just swirl your brush and put a very, very thin layer on your skin, it doesn't actually have that much coverage. So whenever I go foundation free, I actually heavily rely on this powder. Also, sidebar, let me know if you're interested in seeing my foundation free routine because it doesn't actually use any skin tints at all. But going back to what I did today, what I did was I just layered on a touch of this powder over the skin tint, and that took away some of the dewiness and also added a bit more coverage and color corrected it to work better on my skin tone. Sidebar number 2. I know that the Sephora sale is coming up and everyone likes to do their like recommendations for what to buy or what not to buy, and I am not going to be doing that. And personally, because I am on a low buy, the only thing that I'm going to be purchasing during the sale is a refill for this powder because I do go through these quite a lot. I've panned countless of these. I can't even tell you. I actually just opened this fresh one like a few days ago and it's my last one. So I like to stock up on these during the sale, especially because the Sephora collection goes on, I think 30% during the sale, and it's already one of the more affordable brands in-house, of course, but I just like to stock up on these during the sale. Going back to the skin tint really quickly, since this does have a pretty dewy finish, it will highlight any texture that you have on your face. So just keep that in mind. And I was recently like complaining about some texture on my skin. And let me be clear, texture is very normal. Pores are very normal, but my skin is just having a little bit extra texture than is normal for me right now. I think something in my routine is causing me to have a few more like bumps on my skin and stuff like that. So I started using a salicylic acid product in my nighttime routine, and I think that's causing me to purge a little bit. So I just have a few more bumps than usual on my skin, and I'm not loving that, so I'm actually going to be taking a break from this for a little bit until my skin calms down a bit, and then I'll probably go back to it later. Moving on to another Sephora collection product. This is their contour stick. It's a cream product that's been getting a lot of traction on social media lately. Now, I'm a total beginner to contouring. I've always been intrigued by it, but something about it just like scared me. But you know, as I'm getting older, my face shape is changing and things like that, and I'm starting to get like a bit more, you know, folds and things like that, which again is totally normal, but I've just like taken a bit more interest in contouring, so I decided to pick this up. This is the shade light to medium, which is the second out of 4 shades going from light to deep, and this is surprising because I feel like usually the second shade of a shade range would be too light for me, and this does border on being like just maybe a touch too light, because as we get into summer this might not work as well for me. But the next shade up was pretty deep, and I just think I would have struggled a lot with that being a beginner. Maybe as I get more advanced I can take a crack at that and see if I can make that work a little bit better than this, but right now this is working pretty well for me. Since it is a touch on the lighter side, I feel like I don't need to work too hard to blend it out and make it look natural. And since it's a cream product, it does blend very, very effortlessly. And I feel like it just kind of gives me a soft little shadow over here, and I'm not mad about it. I don't have a ton to say about it since I am such a beginner when it comes to contouring. So really all I can say is that this is very beginner friendly and I get the hype. Next, I want to talk about some cheek products, specifically blush, because I have 3 different blush formulas to talk about. And the first one is from Glaminatrix. These are their cream and powder blush duos. So these I did receive in PR and I've been using them since I got them. I did actually use this one on camera in one of my tutorials, so I'll try to link it up here, or I think it's on this side. I'm still a newbie when it comes to YouTube, forgive me, but I'll link it up here so you can check it out. And I quite enjoy these. So like I said, these are a duo. You have the cream at the top and a powder at the bottom. And Glaminatrix says that you can wear either of them alone or layer them in any order, which is interesting because I feel like typically we've been told that you should put cream on an unset base because it won't go on well over powder, but I have used the cream over a powdered base, like exactly what I did today where I used that Sephora powder on my face. I've been using this over that and it's worked really well, which I really appreciate because I do prefer when I'm powdering to just kind of put it all over my face. That being said, I do tend to do a lighter layer of powder right on my actual cheek. This cream formula is very dewy. Like super, super dewy to the point where it looks borderline glossy, especially if you put a ton on. And with this shade, this is a bit on the lighter side for my skin tone, so I if I can do, you know, a light layer of it for a soft wash of blush, but if I really want more of the pigment to come through, I have to layer on a bit more, and that's when it tends to look really glossy. And you can layer the powder half of this over the cream to take some of the glossiness away, but it still is going to look dewy. And specifically with this duo, the powder in this duo has a fine pearl throughout it, so it's not a matte powder. Unlike with these two shades where the matte half does not have any pearl in it, and it's truly a matte powder blush. And the powder half of the blush is beautiful on its own. I've actually worn these blushes with, you know, the cream first and then the powder on top, and then each of these solo. And using the cream alone is not my favorite just because it is incredibly glossy, and that's not usually my favorite effect on the cheek, but I do like using the powders alone. But not so much with this shade. Actually, this duo is my least favorite, but the powder in this blush duo is so pretty. I think it's my favorite of all three because this is just such an interesting tone. I opened it up for you so you can see it a little better, but you can see in this duo, this is the Berry Nice duo. Also, I don't think I mentioned the shades of the other two. I'm such a bad YouTuber. But this one is Think Pink, and the first one that I showed you, this one is Muted Mocha. Anyway, the powder half of this berry duo is so pretty because the cream is pretty deep, and you can put like just a light layer so it's not as pigmented, but I do have to be careful with this to not go overboard. But the powder half of this is a little lighter, and it's just such a pretty color on its own. It's just like, it's so pretty. So I think if I had to rank them, Think Pink would be my least favorite, and then these two I like. Well, I think I like Muted Mocha just a little bit more just because I love this neutral tone, but I do like the cream part of this better than the powder, and over here I like the powder better than the cream. Next up is another blush formula from Glaminatrix, and these are their liquid blushes. These are technically their lip and cheek flushes, and these I also received in PR. So there are 6 shades here, and these are a shade extension because this is a formula they already had in their lineup. They previously had 5 shades, which I also have, and that means that I'm pretty familiar with this formula. This is a liquid blush that is a bit more on the buildable side, so you're not going to get like insane pigment right out of the gate that you won't be able to control as long as you go carefully. And I highly recommend, instead of dotting it onto your face, putting it on the back of your hand and then picking it up with a brush, working it into the brush, tapping it a bit off, and then putting it on your cheeks. You'll get much more even and controllable pigment that way. But they're a buildable formula, and you can go quite heavy and pigmented with them if you layer them on. Finish wise, these are, a little dewy, not as dewy as the cream blushes that I just showed you, but they don't dry down to a fully matte finish. These also work well over a powdered cheek or an unset cheek, which I always really appreciate, and they work well with both a brush as well as applying with just your fingers. Shade wise, I know everyone was going nuts over this specific shade. This is the shade Soft, because I think it's supposed to be very comparable to a shade from Rare Beauty, their liquid blushes, but quite honestly, this is not my type of shade. It borders on being a little too light for me. So my favorite shades were actually, my favorite shade was the shade Kind, because it's this shade that sits right in between being a pink and a purple. So it goes on and it gives me that like baby pink flush to my cheeks, which I really love. I also think the shade Sweet is really cool because it's a red blush, which I know was like trending like some time back, but I actually didn't have any because, like I said, I've just been on a consistent low buy and I'm not going to buy something just to try out a trend. So I'm very happy to have a red blush in my collection if I ever want to play around with that. That being said, I do prefer the initial 5 shades that they launched. Those were way more up my alley, and I had 3 shades in that launch that I really liked. And that's these 3. This is Gentle, then there's Poppy, and then there's Lavish. And Gentle is like my version of Soft because it's just like this like mauvey pinky shade that goes on very soft on me. And then Poppy is such a fun, bright shade for summertime. It looks very like corally in the tube, and it translates as corally in the cheeks too. I think it's really pretty in the summertime. And Lavish, it's pretty close to like Muted Mocha actually. It's that like neutrally like slightly burnt undertone. It's so pretty. The last thing I'll say about the liquid blushes is that they have pretty good longevity. If you struggle with blush longevity with creams and powders, liquid is definitely the way to go, and I think these are a solid option for that. Next up, I have a blush that I think a lot of you will be interested in, and this is from Phytosurgence from the Smoked collection that they just launched, and this is the shade Scorch, and Jason did send this to me in PR. Now, I have a lot of blushes from Phytosurgence, and I actually just had to replace 2 of them that I've had for about 2 years that They're cream products, they just needed to be replaced, and they're two of my most used blushes, so I'm very familiar with this formula. And the only thing new to me with this was the shade, which, spoiler alert, I love it. So if you are not familiar with the Phytosurgence cream blush formula, this is described as a soft, like chocolate truffle type of thing. I like to think of it as like a mousse, especially with some of their more brown blush shades like this one. It really does feel like a mousse in a pot. And when you put your finger in there, it melts very easily, which makes it very, very blendable on the skin. These are quite pigmented, so you can apply them with a finger, but my favorite way is to apply them with a brush because I feel like you can get a softer, more diffused finish with a brush. And recently I did pick up their small quill brush, so I did purchase this myself, and it's a very small brush. It's meant to fit right in this pot. You can, let me try to get a blank background, but it's meant to fit right in this pot, and it works really, really well with the blushes. That being said, I've used a variety of brushes with these blushes, and a lot of them work well. I would just recommend a synthetic one. So the website says that these blushes dry down to a somewhat powder-like finish, but I don't find that to be the case on me, and I don't know if that's because I typically have a more dewy base on, but I do find that they retain some of the natural dewiness on the cheeks, but it's not super, super glowy. This is what I'm wearing on my cheeks today, and you can see that when I apply it, it's pretty glowy, but then what I usually do to kind of lock in these cream blushes, and also to help with longevity, is I take my powder brush with whatever remaining powder is on there. I don't take any more, and I just kind of like stamp it across both of my cheeks to kind of mute down the pigment level, especially if I go overboard, which I tend to do, and it also takes away some of that shine. Shade-wise, this is such a pretty shade. I do have a bunch of their other blushes, so I'll pop up some comparisons to the ones that this is the closest to, just so you can get an idea of how it stacks up and whether you think it'll add to your collection. Compared to their other blushes, I feel like Scorch is a bit more muted, which is very appropriate for the smoked collection. And I think that the blush that it's most similar to in the existing lineup is Exothermic, but Exothermic, as Jason says, has a bit more purple to it, and Scorch is just a bit more muted and a little warmer too, I think. I don't think that you need both because they do translate as pretty similar, so I would just pick the undertone that you like more. Next up, I want to talk about these Prism Pop pigments from Moira, and I did receive the entire collection to do some paid content for them. This is what I'm wearing for the sparkle on my eyes today, though I did layer these over some mattes, and I used mattes from Titanium Fox's Jay's Joy palette, which I won't be talking about today. I'm not going to be doing a dedicated video for this palette, but I am planning on doing a video with some like mini overviews for several palettes that I'm not doing dedicated videos for, but I just want to give you guys my thoughts on them, so keep an eye out for that video. Really quickly though, I used these three neutral mattes for my eye look today. These pigments are Moira's take on a liquid glittery formula, and they're not meant for just the eyes. They can be used on the eyes, the lips, on the face as highlighter, but I've only used them on the eyes. These go on as a liquid, of course, and you have a decent amount of playtime with them before they dry down to a truly budge-proof finish. So I know that they're marketing these as like really good for festival wear, and I do agree that these would be really great for that, especially because you can very much apply them with just your fingers and kind of tap out the edges and be good to go. But I really enjoy using brushes to get a good blend, especially since I had mattes down already. I think if I did not have mattes down, I would be more comfortable using just my fingers to blend it out, but I just used a brush today. I'm also happy to report that these work really well with mattes, because I know sometimes when you put liquid over mattes, it can like pick them up, or kind of like there'll be streaks where you're blending it into it, but that was not the case today, and I've used them with other mattes as well, and that hasn't happened. These are also an incredibly sparkly formula. I was really surprised when I got them, because I find that sometimes liquid formulas, I don't know what it is, I find that once they dry down, it kind of like eats the glitter a little bit and it dulls out the shine. And I will say that this formula, like a lot of glittery formulas, when you build it up, it's more of like a metallic sheen, and when you shear it out, that's when you get that really beautiful dazzling glitter effect. But of course, there's no actual glitter in here. It's very much eye safe. This is the shade Happy Hollow, which I have all over my lid today. And then I also have this one in Cuddle Cloud in my inner corner and swoop. And both of these are super, super pretty, but there are also 6 other shades for a total of 8 shades. And the brand is calling these duochrome pigments because a bunch of them do shift, but I was also pleasantly surprised to find that a lot of these shades have contrasting different colored sparkles throughout for that like beautiful dimensional finish that I really, really love. And Happy Hollow is one of them, the one that I have on my eyes today. This might be my favorite shade because it's got this like neutral warm base, but the different colored sparkles in it are so pretty. It actually kind of reminds me of the shade that I wore in my previous video with the spicy neutral shade. This is actually a spicy neutral to me because it has that layer of like orangey sparkles and then a layer of bluish sparkles that really, really pop against that warm base. It is so beautiful. These are also on the more affordable side. They're $9.50 each, which is not as low as some of their other products. For example, their compact single shadows are $6 a piece, but I think considering that these are liquid and dry down to such a crease-proof finish, I think this is a fair price. I would also love to see the shade range expand because right now there are 8 shades and there's a good variety. There's some neutral shades and there's some colorful shades, but I think that these would be really good for travel, especially because they're so cute and tiny and because they're long wearing. I think like having more colors in this would be really great. Moving on to some lip products, I want to talk about the new shades of the Unearthly Menacing Metals lipsticks, which is an existing formula in their lineup. They came out with 6 shades last year, so this is another formula that I am familiar with, but they recently expanded and launched 9 more shades. So I don't actually know if I should call this PR because I did not acquire these in the traditional PR sense. I only have 5 of the 9 shades, and the way that I got them was actually because Amanda, the owner of Unearthly Cosmetics, gave me the amazing opportunity to model for the campaign for the Menacing Metals. So I actually got to meet Amanda at like the tail end of February, I want to say. She came out to LA and I got to meet her at the studio where we did a photo shoot, and I had my makeup done, which was such a cool experience. She actually has a video vlogging the whole thing, so you should go check that out. I'm in it and you can like see what the whole experience was like. It was truly amazing, and I got my makeup done for the first time, which I've surprisingly never had my makeup done, so that was a really cool experience, and the makeup artist did such an incredible look on me, and I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity to even be in the photo shoot. It was so amazing, and the photos I think turned out incredible. But basically I got these 5 lipsticks because I brought them home with me after the shoot. They weren't technically PR. Also, you can see this photo on the Unearthly website. It's on the homepage. If you just scroll, you'll see it, and then you can shop the entire look, not just the lipstick. You can also see what the makeup artist used for the eyeshadow. Although they did use a blush that is yet to be launched. This is not a secret. Amanda has talked about it on her YouTube channel, but they used one of the upcoming blushes on my cheeks, so you can't shop that, but once those are released, I will let you know. I also need a minute for the packaging on these, which I do have a short on my channel as well. It's pretty far back because it's for the original 6 shades, but this packaging is so luxe. It's very weighted, first of all, and it's this beautiful metallic purple, but also it's magnetic, and it's magnetic like every single way, which is just, I love it. It's just such a cool component. It's like a hexagon. They have the logo up here, and it's just like this is a lipstick that I just feel so powerful when I apply it. And these tubes don't even have the shade names at the bottom like the normal tubes do. They just have like the sample stickers on the side. That's why you can tell that they really are not the final product. Well, I mean, they are the final product in terms of like the formula, but in terms of like what people will be receiving, you won't be getting, you know, tubes with this sticker on it. So these are the shades Piranha and Dragonfly, and these are the 2 shades they used on me during the shoot, and I don't know, maybe that's why I'm biased, but like they are the 2 that I currently love the most, but that's also probably because I don't have my hands on the other shades that I'm interested in, so very excited to eventually receive those. I've had some questions on what the Menacing Metals formula is like, and this is very much a true lipstick. Like it feels like a lipstick. There is some weight to it. For example, in comparison, the Mob Frost lipsticks that I also have are a bit thinner and more balmy feeling, but these have a little bit of like heft to them, but they're not heavy in the lips. They feel like just like a satin lipstick. They have a satin finish and that beautiful frosty sheen. I will say that the 9 new shades, none of them have like a glittery finish. I feel like in the original Menacing Metals lineup, 2 of them, Void and Ember, had a bit more of like a glittery finish, and then the remaining 4 were a true frosty sheen. In the 9 new shades, all of them are more of that frosty sheen. There's no like glittery texture to them. And quality-wise, these feel just like the previous 6 shades, so I don't think you'll be disappointed in this. The one thing that's different is that the original 6 shades had a pretty strong lychee plum scent to them, but these new shades have more of like a soft vanilla scent. I think it's vanilla, I'm not sure because I can barely tell. It's such a soft scent and I really have to stick my nose like right up to the bullet to tell what it is. Next up, I have another shiny, but this one is more glittery, lip product from Half Magic Beauty. These are the Crystal Butter Bombs and I did receive these in PR. Half Magic Beauty did send me all 4 shades, but I'm just going to be showing you this one. This is the shade Cinnawitch, and you can check my channel for a short where I demo all 4 shades if you're curious what the other ones look like on me. So these are a very sparkly lip formula and they are a true balm. Unlike the Unearthly lipsticks, these are a lot more translucent and thinner on the lips and they do feel very buttery. And I actually want to do, let me know if you guys are interested in this because I'm still undecided, but I kind of want to do a giant lip product comparison video where I talk through all of the recent frosty glittery lip launches from different brands, but I want to do both like bullet, lipstick lip balm formulas as well as more like lip glosses that have glitter in them. So let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. But these are a true balm, so you're not going to get a ton of coverage from them, but they have like a very visible sparkle in my opinion without feeling gritty. I have like really layered these lip balms on in that short as well as just when I've been wearing them, and I never feel any grittiness from the glitter, which is amazing. That being said, as these wear away, and they do tend to wear away pretty quickly because they are a lip balm, as they wear away, those glitter particles remain behind on your lips and you really notice them because without the balm kind of like mixing in with them, I don't know what it is. I think it's like the contrast between the glitter and your lips, but they're just very, very visible. So if you don't like that look, you do need to keep reapplying these, which I don't mind doing because they are a lip balm and they're pretty hydrating, but I do feel like they're hydrating when they're on, but once they wear off and those glitter particles are left behind, it does, like my lips do feel a little dry, but I don't think that's like the lip balm formula. I think it's just the nature of having like glitter on your lips, if that makes sense. So I don't know if it's really like smart to make a glittery lip balm, if it's going to like leave your lips feeling kind of dry once they wear away, but it's a cool product. This is actually what I have on my lips right now, but it's not the only thing I have on my lips because I have it layered over a matte lipstick. I actually have it layered over this shade over here. This is a custom lipstick that I made with Mop Beauty when they had a pop-up here in LA last summer. So that's why it's just like in a pan like this and not in a tube. But this is just like, it's a beautiful brown shade that I designed for my preferences. So I have that on underneath this lip balm. And the reason I did that was because since these are lip balm, they're not super, super high coverage. They're pigmented, but they're pretty sheer. So I typically like to wear these with a lip liner, even when I wear them on their own, just to give my lips a little bit of definition. Though I do feel like the glittery, frosty effect on the lips kind of distracts from your lip line. So I can get away with using these without lip liner. It's just my preference to use lip liner. And they are very pretty on their own, but I think it's also fun to add them over a matte lipstick just to give them more of an opaque finish. But the trade-off is because you're putting a matte lipstick underneath and this is mixing in with it, the matte lipstick kind of eats up some of the glitter particles and it's not as overtly glittery on the lips. It looks more of like a sheen, but it's not quite frosty either. It really dulls down the glitter, which I don't know, it is a cool effect, but it's not going to be overtly glittery. Did I already say that these are totally unscented? I can't remember if I did. It's very late at night, which is also why I'm like in this like sweatshirt and I'm really just filming from here up. I'm cold and tired and I just want to be cozy. But in case I didn't mention it in previously, these are unscented. I do want to quickly talk about the packaging on this. It's not my favorite, and I know that the brand has a very like sustainable aspect to them, which I love, but this is it's a cardboard packaging and it just feels a little flimsy, which I wouldn't mind if this was a lipstick, but since it's being marketed as a lip balm, something that you traditionally take on the go with you, I just feel like repeated, throwing this in the bag and it like jostling up against other items and opening and closing it for the frequent reapplication, I can see this packaging getting very crusty very fast. The bullet also doesn't feel like super secure in this packaging. Like with one of the other shades, it feels like it's kind of like moving around, and I'm like scared to apply it with anything more than just feather light pressure out of fear of it, you know, sliding off of the base. The last product that I want to talk about is the Kulfi Beauty Badi Lash Mascara, which I'm also wearing today, and I did receive this in PR. Really quickly, I need to make a little note about the pronunciation for this mascara because it's spelled B-A-D-I, which I foresee a lot of people calling Badi, but it's Badi because Kulfi is a South Asian brand and a lot of their products have Hindi words in the titles, and Badi means big, and like all of the marketing materials for this mascara was like huge, big stuff. Like the model was holding this absolutely massive mascara. So they're, you know, Badi lash, like big lash. They're going for that big lash look. Also, please don't roast me for my pronunciation because I don't speak Hindi fluently. My family's native tongue is actually, we're from South India, so we don't speak Hindi at home. We speak Kannada. So that's why my Hindi pronunciation is a little bit, it's not the best. Anyway, this mascara is being marketed as a tubing mascara, which I've only tried one tubing mascara before. It was the Cali Ray one, which I did quite enjoy while I had it, but no one told me. Well, everyone says that tubing mascaras come off in tubes, but I feel like it's more like it comes off in clumps. Like they don't seem like, I was imagining like little cylindrical tubes, at least that's how I've heard it described, and maybe there are different kinds of tubing mascaras, but this one comes off in like little clumps, which I don't mind. I quite like that because it avoids that, like, you know, that raccoon eye smudging that you usually get with other mascaras. I get the appeal of tubing mascaras for people who really don't like removing mascara, which is me. I really hate removing mascara. It is a thing that makes me dread my nighttime routine the most, like even more than getting off sparkly eyeshadow, because I feel like I have that locked down. But when it comes to mascara, I feel like I'm just sitting there forever trying to get it off. So I do quite enjoy this tubing formula. It's pretty easy to get off. I don't use a cleansing balm or cleansing oil. I use micellar water. My skin is just really sensitive. Every oil or balm that I've tried has clogged my pores and broken me out. So I'm just sticking to micellar water, and I usually soak a little cotton pad and, like, you know, rub it on my, or not rub it on my eye, but I keep it against my eye, and then I swipe it off to get the glitter eyeshadow off. And then usually that has saturated the mascara, so I can just take my fingers and go like this and get the little tubes or clumps off. The wand on this is really interesting. It's a plastic wand with little tiny bristles and a little like spiky part at the very tip, which I find is pretty good for getting into like the inner corner and outer corner and coating each and every lash. And I do believe, you know, they're marketing this as being clump free. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I do find it to be clump free as long as you don't layer too much of it on. I feel like if you're really sitting there and going for 2 coats and really working it in, then it can get a little clumpy, but as long as you're doing like a reasonable amount, it won't get clumpy. But I am someone who actually does enjoy I wouldn't say clumpy because I don't like clumpy, but I like a thick, voluminous, and bold lash, especially because I don't wear false lashes. And my natural lashes are pretty, like, I feel like they have a decent amount of volume to them, but they're not the longest. So I really like to sit there and work my mascara, and I take so long to do my mascara because of this. But I really do like the result of this mascara. But I do find that if I layer on too much, not only does it get a little too clumpy, but that's when it can kind of start to flake throughout the day. And then the flakes will like get into my contacts and stuff. And so I didn't have that issue when I first tried the mascara in like the first week of it, but now that it's been like several weeks that I've had this and I've been using it and it's like had some time to sit, that's what I'm finding is the case. And so I just need to be careful not to layer on too much, and if I want to do that, I'll use a different mascara. But I feel like I don't need to layer it on to get a really pretty effect. Like today I only did 1 coat, and I did, like, you know, sit there and work it in a little bit, but I'm very happy with this level of lash. I feel like it gives me exactly what I want, and I'm not even wearing like heavy matte shadow or anything today, or any eyeliner, but I feel like the mascara is giving me a decent amount of definition, at least at the level that I like. Okay, I'm finally done with all the products. I feel like I've been sitting here and yapping for so long. I'm a little scared to see how long this video will be in editing. Hopefully it won't be too long, and if it is, I hope you guys like long videos. Let me know in the comments down below. I haven't actually asked you guys how you feel about video lengths and stuff like that, so I'm curious to know if you made it till the end of this video, which I'm always so grateful for. Let me know how you feel about video length. Do you prefer like an under 20-minute video, or do you want like all of the detail and you don't mind if it gets super long? Also, let me know what you thought of this format, because at the end of February, I did it more of like a favorites and fails type video where I just told you what I was using the month of February, both older and newer products. But I felt like for March, I wanted to try just like talking about all the products that I've received over the course of the month, because I do get like a decent amount of PR, and for stuff where I'm not doing a dedicated video for it or showing it in a look, I still want to talk about the products and let you guys know how I feel about them. So let me know what you thought of this format. I feel like I'm getting a little bit better at talking about products that aren't just eyeshadow, because like in general, I feel like I'm a pretty analytical person and I really like to talk about products in depth, and I feel like this format of video is like right up my alley. I just need to get a bit more polished at, you know, not being all over the place. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to give this video a like before you go, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!